Hey guys, welcome back to Hype RC. In today's video, I want to do some bench time with the Furitek FX118 Fury Wagon. So I've seen some questions out there in the community, and I wanted to respond to a few of them to help some guys out. So in my original build, I chose this wheel and tire combination. This is an Injora set of wheels and tires. This is a nice bead lock, and the problem starts right here. So this is not a negative offset rim. So if you go out and buy 1.0 rims that do not have a negative offset and you install these on the factory hexes, what's going to happen is that tire is going to push right up against the side of that portal. These will not work. Now, if you have a negative offset rim, they are going to work, but I wanted the green ones and they didn't have them in negative offset, so I chose these. And what you're going to have to do to make these fit, this is an SEX24 brass hex extension, so it goes right over the axle and sits on that pin. And what that allows this to do is to space this wheel off to the side. So this wheel will not rub up against that portal axle now. So if you do go with a chosen rim that is not a negative offset, then you are going to need these hex extensions, which brings me to the first tool I want to talk about. So for any tool bench, these are a must-have, especially when you get to smaller scale rigs. They help out a lot, but just a standard set of tweezers. I got these at the dollar store down the street, but when you're messing with these small 1mm hex pins, getting them in and out and adjusted right, a just cheap set of tweezers goes a long way. I definitely recommend to have these in anybody that does RC's toolbox, no matter what size scale vehicle you're working on. So the next thing I want to talk about are the shocks on here. So we're going to use this UTV 18 shock as our example. It's very closely related to the same design as what's on here. And so I see a lot of guys blowing this lower shock cap out. And what's happening is so when you go to fill these up, and you put too much oil in this reservoir, when you compress that, it's going to pop this bottom cap off. This holds an O-ring in the bottom half of the shock and lets it retain the oil on the inside. So a lot of guys are just putting way too much oil in there and they're blowing that cap off, and they seem to be having a problem with understanding what's going on. So when you do fill up a shock, you're going to be able to tell pretty quick if you have too much oil in it. So when you go to compress it, you're going to feel it squeeze so tight that you cannot compress it anymore, and that is not what you want. You should be able to fully compress your shock, and it has rebound in it from the amount of oil. Now, if you don't put enough in here, you're going to have an air pocket at the top, and you're going to feel it get super squishy at the top. But this one is filled up just right, has nice and smooth action, good rebound on it. So when you're filling up these shocks, you want to make sure that you put enough oil in them and bleed those air pockets out of that shock. But I see guys blowing those caps off, so when you're just overfilling this and putting way too much oil inside it, you know, that's a major problem. Me personally, I've put this Traxxas 30 weight in mine. It is working very, very well, and you got to just take your time when you're tuning your shocks in. So the next tool I'd like to talk about is having a good set of shock pliers. So if you're going to get into the RC hobby and work on these, you're definitely going to need to get yourself a pair of these. So when you strip down your shock, you end up having a bunch of round parts that you have to hold on to. So if you hold on to these with pliers or needle nose pliers or anything like that, and you scratch them up, when this compresses, it's going to end up tearing up that O-ring in there. So with a nice set of shock pliers, you can hold on to these surfaces when you need to take the caps off and take the ends off to be able to strip these down. And these are just an absolute must-have in your RC toolbox. All right, guys, the last thing I want to talk about is the servo in this rig. So I still have the factory servo in here, but I've seen a lot of guys asking questions if aftermarket servos will fit in here. So I went ahead and purchased this AGFRC 7.5 kilogram servo. It has an 8.4 BEC rating in it. We're going to get this thing hooked up to the Python Pro, turn this up to 8.4, and see what kind of improvement this is over the factory servo. All right, guys, so as you can tell, I went ahead and got the AGFRC servo installed in this rig. It went in with no problems. I got the Python Pro turned up to 8.4, and this is absolutely a upgrade from the stock servo. So if you guys have any questions or anything that you'd like to discuss about the FX118, go ahead and leave it in the comments below, and we'll try to figure out a solution to some of your problems. So don't forget to support your local hobby shops. Bash, crawl, repeat. Hit that subscribe and like button for me and ring the bell so you can catch my next video. We'll see you next time.